Hey everybody, welcome back to It's Too Late to Apologize Book Reviews. I'm Stella, and today I'm going to be talking about my 20 most favorite books right now. Meaning these are probably going to change. So my 20 favorite books. Now, why did I go with 20? Because I felt like as I was pulling these books off the shelf that I talked about lots of these, and so I didn't want this to just be repetitive. So I figured if I went with 20, I'd at least be talking about a bunch of books that I haven't name dropped before in other videos. So, my top 20 favorite books in no particular order. All right, book number 1, 1984 by George Orwell. Love this book. It's a classic. Don't think it needs an introduction. And with 20 books, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about each one of these. So, I loved the dystopian nature and the world that Orwell built in this book. It was amazingly well done. It's still heavily quoted today because it was so well done. It was a frightening place that he envisioned. So, 1984. Book number 2, The Hobbit by Tolkien. Another classic. This is one of my favorite fantasy novels of all time. I'd probably say my favorite fantasy novel of all time. It's just such a great time. Such a good read. I've read the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy. My favorite is The Hobbit of Tolkien, of what I've read so far. There's a whole lot more to read from Tolkien, but The Hobbit, my favorite. I can still distinctly remember in my mind when they all end up in those barrels and they're floating down the river. Oh, so good. Number 3, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This was, unfortunately, I read this before I started annotating with sticky notes because this would have had like a gajillion sticky notes sticking out of it. But, I mean, I guess which means I have to read it again so that I can annotate it. But it is so intimate, glimpse into this man's mind when he was writing this for himself. Considered one of the keystone pieces of literature for Stoicism in general. But some really amazing life lessons and maxims in this book. So, I highly recommend. Number 4, also nonfiction, The Tao Te Ching. And this is considered a new translation, the definitive edition, so it claims. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. This feels very closely related philosophically to Stoicism in my mind. I feel like there's a lot of overlap. And I think one of the great things about the way that this one in particular was translated, it's translated in a very colloquial English, modern English manner. So it reads extremely well. Highly recommend. Book number 5, which I've spoken about before, is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I've reviewed it on this channel. I'll link it in the description box below. I've said it several times in other videos. One of the most profound books I've ever read. And I really need to read it again because people keep leaving comments on this video. I love the comments that they leave. They keep leaving their thoughts about the book, about different parts of it that they perceived. And I always find new and intriguing ways to look at different portions of this novel. And I've only ever read it once, and there is so much to digest in this novel. So I'm currently going through my Cormac McCarthy read. I have pre-ordered the box set of The Passenger and Stella Maris. I haven't received them yet. Maybe by the time this video goes up, I've already received it. I'm currently reading Outer Dark. So, working my way through Cormac McCarthy. But Blood Meridian, amazing. Number 6, Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. The psychological aspect of how Gillian Flynn wrote this novel. The main character is not the typical female protagonist we read about, and I absolutely loved that. It was refreshing. It was disturbing. It was so well done. I was thinking about this book for weeks. I still think about this book from time to time. I really hope Gillian Flynn is working on another novel because I wants it. I wants it. Number 7, Donna Tartt's The Little Friend. There is something about this novel that just spoke to me. And I think it has to do with the portrayal of Harriet. Harriet spoke to my childhood. Something about her was so familiar and so close, and it was fascinating to read. This has a sort of, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a twist, but I think most readers would call this an unsatisfying ending. But it was such a journey. Reading this novel is so intriguing, and it's why it's on this list. I also have a review of this. I'll link it in the description box below for anybody who wants to check it out. Number 8, Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. So this year I finished reading all of Gillian Flynn's novels. This was the last one I had to read. I was sort of holding off on it because I wanted to forget the movie enough to be able to read it kind of afresh. And I'm gonna write a review on this one because I absolutely loved this novel. It was weird, it's twisted, it's the psychological aspect of this is again what gets me about Gillian Flynn's writing. I don't agree that all of the choices that she made in it were realistic, but wow, like what a thought experiment. It so good. And I really enjoyed the movie too. I thought the movie was really great also, but Gone Girl, Gillian Flynn, amazing. Number 9, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Absolutely loved this novel. I also have a review of this. I'll link it in the description box below. It is incredibly atmospheric. It is very mysterious. It's a slow-moving book. I feel like a lot of these books are probably going to be a slow-moving, character-driven, scenarios. So, fair warning. But absolutely loved Secret History by Donna Tartt. Number 10 is going to be nonfiction, Escape from Camp 14. When I read this, it was a dramatic reshaping of a lot of perspectives in my mind. This is probably the most bought book I've ever bought and given to other people. This is the book. And it is about the story of one man's escape from a labor camp in North Korea. And, we've gotten a lot of those in recent times. But the really unique thing about this man was that he was actually born in one of these labor camps. And so he has never known the outside world or understood that there was anything in the world other than this labor camp that he grew up in, and how it shapes him and how it changed his perspective. What he considered humanity is extremely fascinating and incredibly scary. This is probably one of the scariest books I've read because it's very frightening to contemplate what humanity will do for survival and what humanity becomes without love and connection. And that's what made this book as impacting as it was for me. I highly recommend. Number 11, talked about this one a few times, Slaughterhouse-5 by Kurt Vonnegut. I feel like I need to reread this, annotate, and do a review of it because it's been a long time since I've read it, but it still really stands out in my mind. And it's such a unique and quirky and strange book. It's almost like satire in a very cruel and dire circumstance of World War II. It has such serious and gruesome content that it covers, and the manner in which Kurt Vonnegut covers it is so incredibly fascinating. And again, I think I'm just gonna have to reread it and do a review of it. And I mean, if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments down below. Number 12, Graham Greene's The End of the Affair. I've spoken about this before in other videos. I love the writing style that Graham Greene uses in this novel. I love the exploration of faith and atheism and love and jealousy. And he does this amazing job of not having the answers, but teasing the curiosity and the reader out to try to understand the situations that these characters are finding themselves in. And it's so incredibly well done. Need to read some more Graham Greene. But the end of the affair. And actually, I have not watched the movie. Have you watched the movie? Is it good? Let me know. Number 13. I just read this not long ago, and I'm writing a review for it right now. But is An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. The subtlety. What I love about Ishiguro's writing is he puts on this master class of subtlety when you read it. You really have to be paying attention. The psychology that he uses, unreliable characters, and that's written in first person perspective, which is my favorite. It is the most intimate manner to read a story, and that's why I love it so much. It messes with how you think you should be interpreting this story. Story takes place after the Second World War. Japan has been obviously bombed with the nuclear bombs in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And it is a story of the one man's and a country's journey to understand their role in the tragedy of World War II and how they can move forward. I couldn't put this book down. Couldn't put it down. Book 14, Gustave Flaubert, Madame Bovary. I have a review for this one. I'll link it in the description box below. One of my favorites. Flaubert's writing is amazing. It is so descriptive. It is so realistic. It has this romanticism, but in a very realist style. Like, it is so well done. And I want to read some more Flaubert, but Madame Bovary. Next is going to be Herman Melville's Moby Dick. I have a review for this one also. I'll link it in the description box below. This is a different edition than the Penguin Dropcaps collection edition that I did read. I ended up getting this Modern Library edition because this is the illustrated Rockwell Kent reprint. And I definitely wanted this print with all the different illustrations by Kent, and some of them are just absolutely beautiful. I love the stylized illustrations that he has in this, and it's really beautiful. And there's a ton of them. So it's so deep. It's saying so much. There's so much metaphor. It's a reason that it's a classic, and they still talk about it and study it. Okay. My next one is going to seem, I feel like, extremely strange. This is an out-of-print book, but it is Memoirs of a Bullfighter by Conchita Cintron. Whenever I'm looking for an out-of-print book, I always use Abe Books, abebooks.com. I'm sure most of you have heard of that site. This is a first edition printed in 1968. It's got a foreword by Orson Welles, and this was written by Conchita Cintron, and it's her own. She wrote her own memoirs, and she was a bullfighter back in the day. It's not a popular sport anymore, understandably so. But this is such a great portal into the past, and Conchita Cintron's story takes place during World War II. I believe her father was Puerto Rican and her mother was American. Her father was in the military, and they were posted down in, I think it was Lima, Peru. And she got into bullfighting at a very young age, trained with a Portuguese nobleman. His name was Don Rui de Camara. And I have actually another book. This was another book, The Goddess of the Bull Ring This was a biography written of her also, but this was written by her mother. It's also very good, but I'd say that the much more intimate portrayal is her own memoir. I think her mother sort of romanticizes things to a certain degree, whereas, which isn't to say that Conchita Cintrón doesn't romanticize a bit, but it's not as intense. And I absolutely loved reading this story. And actually, I do have the dust cover still of this one, and you can see Conchita Cintrón on the cover. If you in any way are sort of enamored by the whole Hemingway's dip into bullfighting, then I highly recommend picking up, if you can find an edition. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find, these aren't very expensive, or at least they weren't when I picked up this copy. But Memoirs of a Bullfighter, although Conchita Cintrón has passed now, she is considered one of the world's greatest matadoras ever. So the story of her retirement, it's literally the stuff movies are made of. Book 17 is going to be Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. I have a review of this one. It's up. I'll link it down below. I had some reservations about the Bronte sisters after reading Wuthering Heights, but I tell you, I could not put this book down, and it spoke to my soul. It is amazing. It is dark. It is moody. It was ahead of its time. Number 18. This is part of a trilogy, but this is my favorite in the trilogy, and it is The Year of the Flood by Margaret Atwood. This is a dystopian, post-apocalyptic, well, I guess it's more post-apocalyptic. The first book takes place after this apocalyptic event happens, and then The Year of the Flood sort of takes us back to when this apocalypse is just about to happen, and takes us through the situation through a few different characters' eyes. And it's similar to A Handmaid's Tale, which is knows very well. You would know that all the facts, all the instances and things that she writes into that novel were true and had happened at some point in human history. And to a similar eeriness, everything that happens in this trilogy, the Oryx and Crake trilogy, is extremely possible, and we are potentially tampering with science-wise for humanity. So it is eerie in the same way that A Handmaid's Tale is eerie. So highly recommend. I've read a bit of Atwood. I think I'm at about 8. I've read about 8 of her books, and this is definitely one of my favorites. Number 19 is going to be Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. Absolutely love this novel. It's a beast. It's historical fiction. Goes across decades of building a cathedral. You, like me, are probably thinking to yourself, Stella, that sounds terribly boring. And you would think it was, but somehow Ken Follett makes it so freaking interesting. I don't know what Ken Follett does. It's like witchcraft. He makes the architecture and the human obstacles of building this cathedral so intriguing, and the characters that we meet and who live and die trying to complete this cathedral, it's engrossing. I've recently purchased a few more. You can kind of see it over here. A whole bunch of Ken Follett I had just purchased at a thrift store the other day, and I need to read more. And last, which is one of my favorites, is going to be Pierce Brown's Dark Age. Absolutely love this series. It's the Red Rising series. The first book in the series, science fiction series, is the weakest, but I kept reading on, and I'm so glad that I did, because this is one of my favorite series of all time. It's space opera in all the ways that I love space opera. It is political. It has really interesting sci-fi elements. It's got plot twists. It's got well-developed characters. It's got tragedy, it's got violence, it's got heartfelt human connection. It is so good. So good. The next book is going to be out the summer of 2023. I've already pre-ordered my copy. I can't wait. I highly recommend if you like sci-fi and you like yourself a series, I highly recommend. So that's my 20 favorite novels of all time. Have you read any of these? Do you like any of them? What are some of your favorite books on your list? Please let me know in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe so more people can join the comments and find some great books. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.